Hello, everybody. I have been really inspired in the last couple of days to share about Indra's net and the power of Indra's net. So I'm going to do that today. And I would like to start, though, we need to lead into what Indra's net is and create some of the inner space that will allow Indra's net to be revealed. So that's what I would like to do. I'll start with the story of Indra in relationship to Jyeshta. And Jyeshta is a nakshaktra in Scorpio that the Vedic system uses. So the Vedic system of astrology breaks down the zodiac not just into 12 houses, but into 27 parts that are within those houses. And the nakshatra called Jyeshta is the one that the solar eclipse is happening within tomorrow, December 4th. Now, this journey that I would like to take us on today is valid forever and always. Whenever there's an openness to it, it doesn't apply only to the eclipse. But the eclipse is a marker in space for this particular energy of Indra's net. And I will describe what that is as well. So Indra is considered to be the god of all gods, or the king of the gods. And he is the ruler of this nakshatra called Jyeshta. So the reason that Indra is known as the god of all the gods is because the energy that is Indra is related to what creates the space out of the unmanifest. The space for all of the gods to appear is what allows the gods to appear, right? So the symbology of the system of gods is really key to the origin story of us all. And that origin story is not something that happened a long, long time ago to bring us into being. It is a story that is infinite and has no beginning and no end. So it's continually occurring now. And when we visit the elements within us that correspond to the origin stories and the relationships between these gods and goddesses, for example, we are exploring the spontaneous arising of aspects of consciousness that we are infinitely. And that also seed, these elements of consciousness are the seeds for all the other dimensions of our being, including the flesh. So Indra is representing the space, the playing field, let's say, for which all the other gods and goddesses can come into being. And that's why that energy is considered to be the god or the king of the gods, let's say. there is a structure to that space, that playing field. And the structure that belongs to Indra, the structure of all of creation, is revealed the more that we purify ourselves on that level of consciousness. So Indra is a particular aspect of consciousness that is available and a part of us all, right? Our opportunity is to clear ourselves or to become purified around that energy so that we can perceive and participate in the fundamental playground of consciousness and the power that comes through that. And I will describe that more as we go. First, I want to talk about the way into that realization. How can we set ourselves up to actually explore through the direct experience what I'm calling Indra's net? And that came for me through the contemplations around the Dark Mother, or silence, the absolute unmanifest, with a twist, the absolute unmanifest with a little bit of something unseen. And you can enter into this contemplation by contemplating darkness, which is a profound inquiry as we're moving more and more toward the winter solstice here in the northern hemisphere, the darkest day of the year. Within darkness, if you enclose yourself in a space, which you're welcome to do now if you have the opportunity, enclose yourself in a space that is as dark as it can be. Today is the dark moon. In the next couple of days, if you're watching this now, that means that at nighttime, there's no moonlight in the sky. This is a perfect opportunity to shut out all the lights and be with the darkness that's being offered through the moon. When I say be with, if you just to kind of, you may or may not be following the way that I work, but the general invitation in a share like this for me, from me to you, the invitation to you is to really allow anything that's arising, any thoughts, any emotion, any physical sensation, any subtle energy movement. Perhaps as you are allowing, letting them shift, letting them be what they are, letting them shift and move, you can then begin to come into the awareness of the one that is aware of what's moving and changing in the inner space, the witness or the observer of all of the sensory effects, and the witness of the observer of the darkness in this case, or what is silent. The acceptance and allowance moving into surrender, or letting things shift and move as they will do. Letting things become whatever they become through the access to the surrender, including myself. letting myself be what I am in each moment, no matter what level of the spectrum of human experience that lands within in each moment. Every expression is welcome to be tasted and explored and reveled in within the inner experience. The allowing perpetuates this unfolding. The allowing plus the contact with silence. And as silence and the human experience that is being reveled in, or the sensory experience that's being reveled in, as they commune at deeper levels in each moment, there is the unfolding of true nature that takes its place. They start to commune so intimately that there is simply the spontaneous and infinite expression of what we are that is purified. So it's a process of purification that we're stepping into through our surrender. And surrender is really to the silence, to the qualities of the physical experience, allowing them both to meet where we were once, creating an obscurity or a separation between the two of them. So as you're listening, please listen from that space so that there is a direct experience that corresponds with my words, so that my words are pointing to your own direct experience. You're noticing your own direct experience in relationship to what I'm sharing, as opposed to what the words might mean to me or someone else. Your inner experience is primary. My sharing is secondary. So the invitation is to find yourself surrounded by darkness, within darkness. And feeling that darkness completely surrounding you, as if you had entered into a deep, dark cave or sweat lodge or the womb. You've gone back into the womb, completely surrounded by darkness, completely safe. Start to feel into the qualities of that darkness. The key question here is, what is the true nature of the darkness? What is its absolute, clarified nature? And what is the one asking the question? What's the nature of the one feeling or sensing the darkness? These are soft inquiries that means that you can let go of having a response or getting an answer, and just watch what arises in the inner space with the questions. You can feel the darkness enveloping, surrounding, holding your body. Feel what it's like to have the darkness meet your skin layer. It has palpable qualities of embrace and softness. It can feel like returning to the womb and being surrounded by the mother. Many of us have complicated relationships with our own birth mothers, our physical mother, or people who have been mother figures for us in our lives, maybe mentors or teachers. And feeling into the qualities of embrace within the darkness can bring up anything that wants to be resolved between us and mother figures. And you can let yourself have the process of visiting that material, letting it be there. Feeling the qualities of silence with whatever arises, any thoughts about your mother or any situations or scenarios unresolved, emotions that come with that. Letting the breath be what it is. And my suggestion is to just let that be there until there's a peace or a settling or stillness. I'm not asking you to resolve every mother issue that you have right now. Instead, I am going to point us to what is the ultimate mother? What is the mother of all mothers? And watch what happens in the inner space when the question is there. You don't have to know the answer, especially in one go at the first ask of the question. Let yourself feel how the darkness responds with the question. What is the mother that precedes all mothers? Precedes yourself if you're a mother, precedes your own mother, precedes all of the mothers that mothered in your genetic line in order for you and your children to be here. And feel the qualities of the darkness. With that question, how does the darkness respond? What happens in you as you perceive the darkness? Can there be a greater communion between you, the witness or the observer of the darkness, and the qualities of the darkness itself, specifically in relationship to this theme or qualities of mother? You know, mother is all embracing, unconditional, constantly there, forever tending to each aspect of her creation. It is the element from which all aspects of the creation birth. This is an alchemical process. So with each level of surrender, there's a deeper penetration of qualities within the darkness that are related to this experience of mother. And the initiation, or the first time we get in contact with this mother, it's the initiation of a long, unfolding relationship, or I should say, better, she then begins to challenge us to purify ourselves so that we can be a clear channel for her expression. And in order to do that, there are primary qualities of creation that need to be visited. These primary qualities in the Tantra, the sacred Tantra tradition, are referred to in terms of goddesses. Kali and Tara, Tripura Sundari, Bala, Matangi. There are 10 of them, as named by that tradition. There are other traditions that have other goddesses, but what is important is that the myth and the story around these goddesses are really just parables to point us into ourselves, to excavate all the aspects of the mother, so that we then become the goddess. So sitting here with this darkness and first exploring the qualities of unconditional love and mother. For me, that has been my entrance, and I think it's a great entrance for all, because it starts with the relaxation of safety, the experience of safety in relationship to mother, and relaxing in to that experience of safety, really reveling in the safety, recognizing that she will never leave, that she's constant, that she's always there. And then when we relax into that darkness and we allow ourselves to feel embraced, we're more likely to open, to be penetrated by this fundamental aspect of all of creation. And then the more we're penetrated, then she can show us through our physical sensations, through our emotions, through our expression, our movement, our words, what comes out of our mouth. Then she can go, watch this, and I appear in this form, and I appear in this form, and I appear in this form, and I appear in this form. And it doesn't just happen like that unless there's a full surrender. You know, she might go, and now I want to appear like this through you. And then you object, or there is an experience of lack that arises that blocks the arising through fulfillment of her. Then that just takes the surrender, you know, the continual visitation of her, the qualities of that wants to emerge. Any objection that is there wants to be held, wants to be fulfilled, wants to be acknowledged, allowed. Through that allowance, there will be the cultivation of a willingness at your own pace, a willingness for a greater communion with that energy. And then the greater the willingness, the greater the communion, the more the aspects appear here. And eventually all of the goddesses within that first arising, you know, these goddesses are the Maha goddesses. They are the energies that appear primarily, The Dark Mother is largely unmanifest. And it is the stimulation or the impulse coming from her that then creates the manifestation, right? When the manifestation is purified, there are these goddesses, which is purified energies. It is our work to achieve levels of purification that allow for the pure expression of these energies. And that is the spiritual practice of returning to these Mahavidyas. Rooting out anything within us that is an ignorance or an obscurity to those energies. Now, how is this related to Indra's net? Well, over the years of having returned to the darkness and then watching things arise out of the darkness, and then as they arise, contemplating, is the arising purified? Is there any separation within me that creates a deficiency in what's arising? Is there any deficiency in my experience of self that is then reflected in what is arising and the perception of what's arising. As the communion with the observer and the mother deepens and deepens and deepens, there is the understanding that the perception is actually a projection of our communion or lack thereof with that energy I'm calling the Dark Mother. So as the communion happens, the purification of the perception occurs, and the purification of the reality, moving from the reality being a reflection of our lack, or is it a reflection of true nature? The reflection of our lack I sometimes refer to as the illusion, or it is the actuality twisted just a little bit. Sometimes it can even just be a hair. That's all it takes to create an illusion or to create a dissonance from what is actual. But when the perception is clarified, then what is actual remains, and there is simplicity with peace, creativity, and the purified expression of the mother in all her aspects. So even though I'm referring to the feminine here, these elements you can't really talk about as feminine. The Dark Mother appears as the Dark Mother because the observer experiences being embraced and surrounded and birthed from this energy. So to the observer, there is an experience of being surrounded unconditionally by something that feels motherly. But when there's a completeness of the purification around that, then all of the references to masculine and feminine drop, because the source of masculine and feminine has been completely merged into. It has penetrated us. We have transcended what births masculine and feminine, and we have become what births it, and then as a result also the qualities of masculine and feminine, and then the reality shifts, or the actuality becomes available. Before that movement, the actuality appears as a linear structural experience within space and time. And that is the matrix, what they're calling the matrix. The movie, I think, did a good job of sharing the qualities of the matrix. That if you think about masculine and feminine as zeros and ones, the zeros and ones that make up all of reality, these zeros and ones, when you put them in a computer program, they begin to create the scaffoldings upon which we all move and agree. There's a silent agreement to express through this unseen scaffolding that's actually based on separation. It's based on separation from our source. The way I've seen that over the years appear in my inner vision as literally as scaffoldings through all of space. Lines in space, intersecting lines in space that have a fixed and rigid quality to them. set, as if there are realities that can be set. And within that set reality, there are limitations. So it's as if limitation is inherent. And this is illusion. This matrix that I'm describing is there, but it's illusion because it's a result of separation from our source. And the more that we return to that source, and the more the source cultivates creativity through us, the shift from the matrix into Indra's net happens. They're sitting there in the darkness. Everything's dark. Becoming darkness, totally surrendering ourselves, the witness, the subtlest aspect of what we are, surrenders to its absolute origin over and over again. And through that process, the true nature of reality begins to shine in the darkness. There is luminosity showing actuality. And then we can see that those set lines in space that were creating the structure for us to operate within was illusion, not because there isn't a structural reality, but because the qualities of that structure, linear, space, and time, you can do this, but you can't do that. You can only run along these lines. Aging, death, taxes, all these are unchanging, because the lines are set. You have to operate this way within reality. Those lines start to release and be free. The structure of reality frees itself, and you realize it was always free. I just didn't recognize it, and hence I couldn't become the qualities of the liberated materiality of consciousness. And Indra, the god of the gods, that makes it possible to recognize the actuality of the structure of space and time, transcendent of space and time, becomes available within the inner space. The qualities of the king of the gods, it starts to express through us, and then we begin to see also the materiality as unlimited expression of divinity. So, Indra, within the inner space, I have read a little bit about Indra and how the Vedic texts talk about Indra, and it's kind of meaningless to me because the primary experience is alive now on the inside. So I encourage you to tune in to the qualities that create luminous fibers in the darkness of space. Those luminous fibers that are fluid, they're not fixed, they're free, they're responsive. They're responsive to intent, and they delight in our capacity to engage with the structure of reality, especially through the purified intent, or when our intent matches the intent of the mother, when our intent matches the impulse that birthed. That's birthing. That's birthing us. That's birthing all of creation. We begin to recognize that we are co-creators. We are active, expressive, conscious co-creators of reality through our engagement with the foundational material of consciousness. Some of the qualities of Indra's net. I just read a piece that matched the qualities for me. Let's see if I have it available. Indra's net. Here we go. This is a quote from Francis Cook from the Jewel Net of Indra, 1977. Indra's net, what is it? Far away in the heavenly abode of the great god Indra, there is a wonderful net which has been hung by some cunning artificer, who's Indra, in such a manner that it stretches out indefinitely in all directions. In accordance with the extravagant tastes of deities, as in, it is a structural material that gods like to play with, not those who are wanting to limit their options. The artificer has hung a single glittering jewel at the net's every node. And since the net itself is infinite in dimension, the jewels are infinite in numbers. There hang the jewels, glittering like stars of the first magnitude, a wonderful sight to behold. If we now arbitrarily select one of these jewels for inspection and look closely at it, we will discover that in its polished surface there are reflected all the other jewels in the net, infinite in number. Not only that, but each of the jewels reflected in this one jewel is also reflecting all the other jewels, so that the process of reflection is infinite. It really speaks to the physics that have been liberated. He goes on to describe how it's related to the holographic nature of the universe, the interconnectedness of all things, lack of a substantive self. So the self appears everywhere within each jewel, within the reflection. That is the nature of the self. There is no localized, I'm Thesa. It's this jewel reflects and interconnects, and I reflect you, you reflect me. We're all reflecting one another. When you breathe, I breathe. I am breathing in the way that reflects back your movement of breath. Non-locality, what I just described. Illusion or Maya, meaning that's a whole video in and of itself, but it's related to what I described before, the perceived reality with actuality with a twist versus the actuality when the perceiver is completely at one with the source of itself, and as a result shows up as a jewel within Indra's net. universal creativity, the mirror-like nature of mind. So as I'm sharing that, perhaps you can feel the qualities in your inner space that match that, moving from the limited, defined by who, defined by what, nature of the matrix into the liberated, freely unfixed, fluid, dynamic expression of oneness. That's the key to these times. It's the key to shifting out of the madness of the world and shifting into the actuality of fully liberated materiality. And this eclipse is the invitation into that. The invitation is always there, but with the eclipse, it's like, hello, take me. Enter door number 3, out of the matrix, into the creative fluidity. That's the power that I see right now, the specific power, this whole COVID craziness and the reality that we have entered through that has been great because it shows the limited, defined way. It shows the elements of the matrix. You have to do this, like this, at this time, or you can't, blah, 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 blah. That's so illustrative of the limited reality. And when it becomes more available, when the limited reality becomes more available, the gateway into unlimited, liberated expression through the awakening of the source of ourselves and the embodiment of that source becomes also equally heightened and available. And that's the power of what's happening now in these otherwise dark times. It's dark when you're finding yourself running along the lines of the zeros and ones. It's difficult because our true nature is less available. So I want to say a few more things about Indra's net. I personally have been surprised to engage with Indra's wife. And the elements of masculine and feminine through this return to the primordial, and not just return, so you're returning to that primordial space of being birthed by the mother. And eventually she says, we are one, let's birth ourselves consciously, spontaneously. And what, dear, would you like to add to that process? What would you like to input into your own creation, into the creation of matter that is constant and fluid and listening, is receptive to you? Through that, there is a total, utter collapse of masculine and feminine because there's a transcendence of it, right? That comes with the mastery. But along that way, it's useful to eke out masculine and feminine until they're completely transcended. And the eking out in relationship to Indra, it turns out Indra has a wife. And Indra's wife is very jealous, and she is in touch with wrath, So I read a little bit about this. It's actually not that easy to find in the common commonly available material information on Indrani, which is Indra's wife. But the information I did find corresponds to that. And I've been experiencing in myself, there'll be times where something will happen in the environment and I'm instantly in wrath. Or jealousy has been something that I have visited a lot over time in regards to the purification and emptying out in relationship. And it turns out that these are key qualities of Indrani when she's in separation from source and from her husband, or the energy that corresponds with the artificer of this net, right? So I want to offer that so that you can also add that to your inquiry and just notice, okay, there is what births this liberated, unfixed, fluid structure of reality. Luminous threads are a big part of that. The luminosity is a key quality. And the luminosity with the threads is what creates the fluidity and the responsiveness that's different than the matrix, right? So the artificer of that you can inquire into. That would be Indra. But actually, there's a combination of Indra and Indrani, right? So Indrani's problem, let's say in the story, is that Indra is sleeping around. Now, how does that relate? That's a personification. How does that relate to the pure energy of what we're calling Indra? Indra, or this structural materiality, is at the foundation of all beings. So in a way, you cannot separate the structure of reality from the beings that are made up of this structure, right? And in that way, Indra has to penetrate every single aspect of creation through its structure. And that is like making love with every single aspect of the creation, right? So Indrani has to come to peace with this because it is his nature. It is the nature of the creator of the structure to be embedded within the structure, right? So if there's any separation at the feminine, within the feminine qualities of that, even though they're very subtle, it's super subtle here, then there wants to be a return to the mother there through that. So what I'm doing is feeling the wrath, letting the wrath be there, letting the jealousy, which I wouldn't call jealousy at this point, it's so subtle, I would call it a basic experience of deficiency within myself whenever I contemplate like my partner with another woman, for example, then I go, oh, deficiency in myself. And that deficiency is pointing to the need to return to the mother so that I can arise again as Indrani, be unified with Indra, and I can experience this Indra's net even more pure, in a purified way, in a more purified way, which means that there's greater conscious capacity for creativity through that consciousness. This is exciting, dear people, because this is when we exit the laws of reality that reflect the matrix, the fixed, limited expression, and we enter into the liberated laws of physics. and we get to play. We have exited hell and entered into the heavenly capacity to create according to divine intent. So that's an ongoing play that has many levels as far as I can tell. I will meet you there. It's been almost an hour that I have been sharing, so I will finish this. And I hope that your eclipse gives you lots of fruit. Please tend to your inner space and be penetrated by all of the beautiful insights that are available through this eclipse in Scorpio. And I will see you soon. Thank you for listening and sharing with me.